I wouldn't call myself a straight up hater.
I was confused because you did just go to the fjords, but now we've learned that Alex is just silly.
Yeah,
So
it's very factual.
Brain
perfect.
wires crossed.
Well, we're live, so let's have 20 seconds of silence just to bore the hell out of anybody who just showed up, and then we will rock and we will roll. We'll do both of those things. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Star Wars Generations podcast. Today we've got the big three back, myself, Erin, and Alex, here to talk about the Acolyte Episode 3. There's a lot in this episode to talk about, obviously, but Erin, you were not able to join us, so let me first get your feelings on what do you think of episodes 1 and 2?
Oh my gosh, I loved them. I really did. I had an interesting experience watching them because I was like jet lagged in Europe, hadn't slept in like 30 some hours, and I was trying to like watch it. So my perception was a little wonky. I don't remember them 100%, but I did love it. I just remember seeing the next day some stuff online that was like people complaining it moved too slow. And I was like, people say this about every damn Star Wars show, and I don't care. Like, I think
Yeah.
it's perfect pacing.
And Star Wars
So-
is like meant to be slow, also.
Once again, we're having an influx of hate towards the show. I think there's legitimate reasons to not like it, but a lot of kind of dumb ones. That all the stuff about race, there's a lot of racism, a lot of sexism, a lot of like show is supposed to be for white guys. I'm going to say now, I think in the past, this podcast and an awful lot of the internet gets very focused on responding to those people and needing to constantly eh, you know, try and talk, try and give logical arguments in response when there's really no logic happening. So I'm proposing, at least for this podcast and also just my social media in general, and I'm encouraging all of our listeners, let's just stop engaging with those people. There are people who hate, who don't like what Disney has done, who don't like Kathleen Kennedy. Maybe you think they have legit reasons, maybe you don't. I'm just done engaging with that part of the conversation. If you don't, if you've got like things you want to discuss with the Acolyte, that's about more than like, oh, there's fire in space or there's not enough white men. Then definitely, I want to hear that, including people who don't like the show. But I'm just done with that engagement. But with that, let's, yeah,
Can I say one thing, Matthew?
no, please.
I want to agree with everything Matthew just said. I think that like we've always specified in this podcast that we are here, like whether you like a certain piece or not like a certain piece of the galaxy, we're never gonna like put anyone down for their thoughts. We just ask that like if you reach out to us that like you tell us like why you like or don't like something and like just give us your because like I think you can enjoy Star Wars any way you want. It's just the immediate hate. And I was actually reading an article that it seems like a lot of the bad reviews, especially on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, have been AI generated. Yep. And that like people are like literally running scripts to ratings bomb the show because there's absolutely no way that like the like 5.0 ranking it has right now on IMDb is accurate because sure it has its problems, but I think it's fantastic so far. So just wanted to say my piece on that.
No, I think that's exactly right. And I think, look, if you don't think Star Wars is what it used to be, I'm glad you still have the movies. I'm glad you still have the Clone Wars or whatever it is you liked. But we are moving forward to Star Wars. Disney does own Star Wars. If you're here for that reality, let's talk about it. If not, well, please find something else. So with that, one quick word, and then we'll jump into this episode.
All right, we're starting the conversation here, but we do want to hear from you guys as well. Send your thoughts, questions, or anything else you want to hear us discuss to feedback@theethicalpanda.com. Or you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok under Star Wars Generations. If you really want, you can even chat with us on Discord or Facebook. The links for both of those will be in our show notes. Otherwise, for any information regarding us, you can always check our website at theethicalpanda.com. And, I don't know, if you like this content, if you just can't get enough of the three of us and our fun little banter, why not become a member? You get early access to ad-free episodes for all of the Ethical Panda podcasts, along with bonus content at the end of most episodes. Plus, there are episodes that are just for you guys. There's member-only episodes. It's just $5 a month if you want to join with our members, hang out a little more. Or if you want to do it for a full year, awesome. It'll be $55. Save a little bit. You can sign up at theethicalpanda.com or through the link in our show notes. Now, back to the conversation.
All right, so episode 3. What did we think?
I don't know if it's the hot take or not. This is one of my favorite episodes of a live action Star Wars show that I've seen, maybe outside of like in a while, in a very long time. I just felt very like I don't know, magical. Like like having a different like band of witches. We're just the only group on this planet. It just felt very like a lot of the best parts of like episodes out of the Clone Wars almost, where you have these just like planets we haven't seen, cultures we don't know about, and you got to see like last episode, Matthew, you and I were praising the Jedi for seeming a lot more, the better at least in the Jedi of the Skywalker saga, and then here you see like, are they better? Like I saw, it's almost like you see like a little bit of the not dark side per se, but like the the dogmatic views and how they affect other people, and it just got me thinking. I felt like engaged start to finish, and like it wasn't just like one feeling. I felt like I went through a roller coaster of emotions the whole time, and sure there was a few like kind of cringy like acting moments, but like overall I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked it. I mean, as far as like this whole series so far, I love me a classic like evil twin story. It's just so entertaining. I don't care how many times they do it. I think it's great. It makes for a fun little mystery, and yeah, so kind of seeing some of the background, and of course, this very pivotal moment of what happened to their actual community. When everything burned. And it was really cool to see that pivotal moment, but also like get to know the twins outside of it. Like, because thinking about it, like, oh, she has an evil twin. I bet like they used to be so close. She could have never seen this coming. No, they were not that close. Like they were close, but May wanted them to be the same. And Osha desperately wanted to be her own person. And it was constant conflict between the two of them. And that makes everything make more sense. And it's interesting to see just how quickly May gets very violent when her like thought and view of the world is threatened. Because it literally goes from we are the same, I am one with you, I am nothing without you, like we are gonna live together and be these wonderful witches, to I'm gonna stop you from leaving. You can't stop me. I'll kill you.
Right.
Yo, May was crazy, bro. That girl is disturbed. And it gets me wondering about like the one quote where they talk about like how the kids were made. Like, the mother talked about how she made them and the other one carried them. And I'm like, was like Osha made with more, I have probably a simplified way of saying it, but more of like the light side of the force versus the dark side of the force in May? Like, is it like that idea of like a vergence or a separation, kind of like Rey and Kylo were in episode 9?
Like
Sorry.
yin yang.
But yeah, like a yin yang. Like it's just very interesting because May is so like immediately at such a young age angry and like quick to her emotions, and Osha's so calm and collected. I'm like, this is what I want. This is not what I want. Can you imagine being a child and being able to have the courage to say, this is what I want, and reject what your parents want for you? Good for her. Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love this episode in a lot of ways, but I think my final opinion of this episode is going to be defined a lot by what happens in the rest of the show, because I know that I am frankly working on the assumption that what we saw in this episode is not an accurate portrayal of what actually happened.
Right.
And for me, there's a couple reasons here. And, because I think on one level you could watch this and be like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. And frankly, I think that's the point. For one thing, yes, were the Jedi kind of colonialists and like, deeply disrespectful of another culture without really understanding it and saying like they're the only ones. And then they said they don't take children, but that's frankly exactly what they're doing. Yes. But is there anything the Jedi did that I think would drive Tobin into 10 years of like, I have to repent of my terrible, terrible sin, or else I'm just, and then I'm just going to kill myself? No. Secondly, I hear what you guys are saying. It felt like a very fast villain turn from May. Like, to me, I didn't really buy that she would turn on her sister quite that fast. And maybe that's the point I'm wrong about, and that's fine. But to me, the third thing that is really telling us this is not an accurate portrayal is she starts this fire, and then all those people in the colony are dead. None of them have burn marks on them. They're all just suddenly dead in this like circle of bodies.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of like in The Last Jedi, although this time it's more other people are influencing it, what we are seeing is what the Jedi allowed Osha to see about what happened. And that I don't know if it's mind tricks telling her something happened that didn't, or just that they're outright lying or something. But like to me, if we got to the end of the season and this was actually what happened, I would probably that would change my feeling on this a lot. I'm going into the assumption that that because I think everything else has been so good and so subtle. I don't think that's possible. I think we're going to have an ending where we realize that May's experience of what happened is very different, and that actually what the Jedi did is a lot more underhanded and problematic than what we just saw.
I definitely was getting like Star Wars has done this before. I mean, like, in episode 8, like the Rashomon like setup, for those who don't know, it's a 1950 movie where like they depict a woman being attacked, I think possibly even like raped in the middle of the woods from 3 different perspectives throughout the movie, and then each one is a little like untrue basically, and then we kind of put them all together and you get the final true picture. And it's showing bias like in viewpoints, and I think that you're absolutely correct, because it doesn't make sense that May would go so quickly. And I had the same thought. I was like, how does this coven of all powerful witches all die in a circle like that so quickly when the fire hasn't even actually reached that area? Like, I mean, like, sure, I understand like carbon monoxide, asphyxiation, all that, but it was way too fast. And May, a child, wasn't dead, yet these full-grown adults were. I definitely think that like Tovin, I agree, because I also wrote in my notes here, like, why would Torvin have been in that state for so, and be like, so like, I've been waiting for you to come back so I can kill myself in your honor? Like, absolutely no shot that he does that if this was the outcome.
Yeah.
I think the Jedi, I'm not gonna get deep into predictions, but I agree. I think the Jedi did something underhanded, and if I were to guess, it relates to like them being distrusting of witches in general. Because from the beginning of it, they're like, I think the part that probably is true is that like the witches coven did not want the Jedi to find them and did not want like the Jedi to see their children, and they feared them, I think, for a rightful reason.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I see it kind of as like it's a story that's told that's not the full story. I don't know if I necessarily interpreted it such that that version has been warped or Osha has been manipulated to believe it is that. I do agree that it's like, yeah, the way that all the witches die makes absolutely no sense. There's something we're missing. The way that
Right.
they're dead makes not. The way that they died so quickly. The way that, like, I don't know. It's just, and the dialogue between May and Osha says, "What have you done?" And May says, "What have you done?" Which implies something Osha did brought something that May knows caused their deaths. Is kind of a way you could interpret it.
Right. Yeah, I didn't even pick up on that, but you're right. May is also saying, "What have you done?" in a way that like doesn't
It's
sound right for someone who like they both would know had literally just set this fire.
yeah. Well,
So
I do believe that she did set the fire, but
right.
yeah, it's like, and maybe it's a sort of trying to take the blame away from herself. You made me do it type of an idea. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote
but
down.
it just,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, leaves it open to a few different interpretations. And I'll be interested to see what they tell us more about this in the future.
Yeah, I was just gonna add to what you said, Aaron, because initially I thought
Mhm.
it was her just gaslighting her sister. At like first glance, I was like, "You did this," and I'm like, "Girl, what? What?" I literally wrote down in my notes at first, before I had time to think it all over. I literally wrote down in my notes like, "Bro, May has whatever's coming to her. She's about to kill everyone and then gaslight them." And then I thought about it more, and I was like, "Wait, no, there's no way this all can be true." But like,
Yeah.
it feels very like I wonder if May has a completely different perspective, and like also what the Jedi told us is different. Like even Sona, like I watched her sister die, And like, I guess like he saw her fall kind of, but like he didn't confirm her death. And like, he was so sure initially that she was dead. Oh no, feels very fishy to me.
Yeah.
Well, Saul especially. First of all, I love his character. I love the actor. He learned English for this part, and he's
Mhm.
doing such an incredible job.
Mhm.
He's an actor. If people have seen the Squid Games, he was one of the main actors in that.
So good.
He's phenomenal in that as well. And I feel like he is really portraying this part of someone who is the most deluded about what the Jedi are, because, and we can get into this question now, do the Jedi kidnap people in terms of like breaking into their houses and stealing their children and skulking away in the depth of the night? No. Do the Jedi take the children of people with kind of questionably dubious consent from the parents? I think absolutely this shows that they do.
Mhm.
You know, like to me, it's one thing if, like, as a parent, again, I want my child to have some freedom. Certainly, if my child comes and tells me, "Hey, I want to go off to this boarding school and study this thing that might take me away from my family forever," I'm not going to reflexively say no. But if someone comes into my home and grabs my kid and is like, "Hey, wouldn't you like to leave your family and like go off with us for a while?" I'm not really going to be cool with that.
Mhm.
And the whole way they approach it, and Saul's the one who literally is saying, like, "No, we don't take children. It's your choice." And by the way, it happened to me when I was 4 years old.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't think a 4-year-old has any ability to really conceive of what's happening to them. And so
No.
he seems to me the one who is the most like kind of drank the Kool-Aid about all this.
Mhm.
I totally agree.
I want to put in about Torben. Maybe this guilt, this feeling he has, like he was put under some sort of magic by mother, what was her name? Anasea.
Uh-huh.
She did something to him. We all saw he fell to his knees, eyes clouded with black. What if he saw or experienced something? Maybe it's something about how the girls came to be that gave him some sort of guilt or feeling about May that made him feel, maybe he feels so badly for her because she was born of the dark side or something like that. Maybe that's where that guilt is coming from, is that he knew that about her. And maybe once he knew that, he chose to do something and try and kill her or try and kill the mothers. I wonder if that instance, if he learned more about the witches than they thought he did, or if that has to do with anything.
Mm.
I think all
Um,
these things are possible. I think we do know that shapeshifters exist in this galaxy, and that's
that's
another
also
direction.
possible. Yeah.
I think I'm going to try not go down too far into the theory world, but for me at least, I do think the main thing that points to the fact that this isn't all we know is the death of all the other witches, because that to me is the thing that makes the least sense.
Mhm.
I do know that the way they had portrayed May's character as someone who falls to the dark side, in large part because of the way, in her mind, the Jedi steal her sister and kill her family and abandon her. That's a story that makes a lot of sense. But if she's already basically pyromaniac, homicidal, sister killing girl, like that means actually she's turned evil a long time beforehand. And I would like I don't love the divergence in the Force idea, but especially I I like agency, and so anything that tells me that just like something about the Force makes May more evil or makes Osha more good, I
Mhm.
think I'm gonna roll my eyes at a little bit. It may be that they do it in a way that I'm not expecting. It is amazing, but
Yeah.
I'm hoping
Fair.
that's not the way we go.
Just go back to your initial thought before Matthew, because I have a lot of thoughts on it. In that the Jedi stealing children, um, I think that's been like a point of conversation in the fan base. Since probably episode 1 came out, we saw like them take Anakin, with Qui-Gon take Anakin that way, and we see it in the Clone Wars. And there's been debate on this topic before. But like you said, I don't think it's possible for informed consent to be given by a child, especially a child of 4 or 6 or like any of that. And like dubious consent be damned. She's not even like, the Jedi are basically like employing in some instances like maybe not direct, but kind of intimidation factors towards the parents or the guardian in some cases.
Hmm.
In other cases, they're like, your child is special. Do you want to deprive them of this?
Mhm.
Like it's just very like kind of underhanded. And then they, I don't know. It's so they convince the child, like you're special. You can be more. You can be special. And like they don't like, they don't factor in like, oh, you have to go through intense training. You'll never be able to love or see your family. Like you're not going through all of the things this child's gonna have to give up. And again, like even if they did, they're so young. And like I don't know, like it's so hard, I guess, because in order for the Jedi Order to function, you need to be training them from when they're young, but maybe then you should allow breeding or, just sex within the order. So like it's just coming from within and like it's being like instead of like let me go out into the galaxy and like steal children here and there, like and like we briefly touched on this last time, Matthew, like the idea of like even May could have even like gone through the test properly and not try to fail it, and maybe she doesn't get chosen. Maybe Osha was only chosen, and then they're splitting a family, they're rejecting a child, and like it just there's like this destroying and splitting apart families is very hard to watch, and like I don't know, man. It's never sat right with me, and like, that's one of the biggest issues I have with the Jedi Order is how they
Yeah.
grow their numbers.
And I think this episode does a very good job of raising those questions without making it black or white. Because I think we can definitely see the Jedi, again, they're not literally kidnapping, but they're being very bullying and very like assuming like we know what's best. There's that great line of, well, she says like, well, but Republic law dictates, and like they're worried that they're training people as though the Jedi are the only ones who get to do this, even though this is not a planet within the Republic. They should have no jurisdiction here. But also at the same time, like it's not like the witches are great. Like they're basically forcing Osha into this terror, into this. I mean, I think I can safely call them a cult. In a lot of
Yeah.
ways. And so I like that it's presented as like neither one of these groups is necessarily right or wrong. But you're right, because it raised a lot of other questions. Like, okay, well, if both of them became Jedi, what does that? If you're bringing in twins, aren't they? We kind of talked about this a bit last time. Like, what about their attachments to each other? Um, these girls, I think, are at least Anakin's age, if not older. So why aren't they too old? Which I do think that maybe part of what happens with these girls is a part of what gets Yoda and others to be like, no, no, they're too old. We should only go younger. But it seems like at this point in time, there is no problem with that. So
Yeah.
I'm
And there's that great quote where the mother says, it's not about good or evil. Like they're fighting if the Jedi are good or evil, and she's like, it's about power and who has the right to use it. And that really struck a chord with me because it's so true. I mean, it's the Jedi are coming in, like you said, Matthew, and saying, you can't train your children. Like only the Jedi can do that. And it's like, it's regardless. Like like you said, like May thinks they're evil, Osha thinks they're good, and the mother's like, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all, actually. Is the Jedi have this power, and the way she was even describing the Force, like early in the lesson, it's like, why can't there be different like groups and factions who teach the Force, in different ways and call it different things, and like I think we've just always seen it from the Jedi perspective, but like, why is theirs the right one? Because they're the biggest organization. Because the biggest organization always is the one that's always right. Like I
Definitely.
just. Like whether they're related to like I had thought like are they related to Night Sisters or not? Like I understand the Night Sisters might use their magic in like a little bit of a darker way, but like we haven't really seen like these witches ran away for some reason. Were on a completely isolated planet. They weren't doing anyone harm that we could see, and the Jedi like tracked them down. And if they really did kill them, bro, I don't know, man. That just opens a big can of worms on like how messed up the Jedi really were, and it makes it make more sense of why the galaxy was so divisive on them, and eventually Palpatine being able to use that division to turn to outright contempt. Like it really, it's fascinating how it all connects together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so true. And Tudor's connections, I want to draw one that is definitely there, one that I think is possible. In the High Republic books, particularly in Phase 2, we have been introduced to the idea that there have been other groups who use the Force. At one point, there was like a conclave of all these different Force religions, and that most of them didn't like the Jedi very much. And that one of the biggest points of contention is like some of them, including the path of the open hand, which becomes the path of the closed fist and is very connected to the nihil. They really feel like no, we shouldn't pull the force at all. The force is the force is the force, and humans should never control it. Our sentient beings should never control it. And their idea, this group of witches, of it's a thread, and you can kind of pull on it a little bit here and there, but for the most part, you leave it alone, is not quite as extreme as that path of the open hand, but feels to me like the kind of thing that would be like people from the open hand pass their teachings down, pass their teachings down, pass their teachings down. It becomes this.
Mhm.
So I love that connection. And again, maybe I'm wrong here, but it feels to me like the whole, like, one woman created these children and the other one carried them. To me, this is supposed to indicate that this is related to how Anakin was created. And that
Mhm.
Yep.
Anakin being
Yep.
created isn't just a random occurrence of the Force itself, but was of people on the dark side manipulating the Force. And if what we're learning, like one thing we've established in other works, is that the Sith are very happy to learn from other people who study the dark side and who study the Force.
Mhm.
So if the net result of this is that a child who knows they were conceived this way goes into the Sith, like, and so the
Mm,
idea that, like, is this how Darth Plagueis and then Darth Sidious figured out how to do this?
fascinating.
Right?
I had not
Like,
considered that, Matthew. That's a great point.
it may not be there, but I kind of feel like it would be weird for it not to be in some way.
No,
Not
because
even that they have to lampshade it, but just like this is people figure. And granted, like doing it to someone who's right there and consenting versus doing it like just putting it out into the universe is very different. But
we're only a
Mhm.
couple generations before like the Plagueis Palpatine era, so it
okay,
would make total sense that like
Yeah.
this knowledge would be passed down. Especially like, I mean, we need to know who the identity of the Sith is. I mean, maybe they just invented a new dark side user. But like, I think that makes total sense that like that is how, the Sith would maybe have like learned some of this knowledge or like, try to like extrapolate it that way, or even if they just heard that this happened, then they realize it's possible and they try to figure it out on their own. And that's why they can't, that's why they like failed to maybe like create what they wanted right in front of themselves, but like it got, sent out to freaking Tatooine. Like it seems like an imperfect effort to create an Anakin.
right,
Oh man. Wow. I actually really like that because for so long we've never had any sort of even touch on how the
Mhm.
hell Anakin was actually created in canon, at least. And so this like really, really, I think would be cool if that went in that direction.
yeah. The one caveat I'll say is that if we go in that direction, what we're basically saying is that Shmi was forcibly impregnated through magic without any consent from her, and that's a huge violation that would need to be acknowledged in some way. But yeah, it could be a thing.
Right. I always, unfortunately, I always assumed that's what happened in the first place because she had no idea who the father was, had no knowledge. To me, it always felt like that was the insinuation, and that was part of her tragic, really messed up story of just slavery, forced impregnation, sold again, killed. Like,
Oh,
and I always
wow.
interpreted it as that like Anakin was extra. I don't know if he was angry about that, but just angry that his mother had mistreated her whole life, and he was never allowed to help her even when he gained power.
Oh yeah, I always thought it was supposed to be an immaculate conception, not something that happened with another actual person, like through her being a slave or some other.
Well, I don't know if she was like knowledgeable that it happened, but like I mean, like I don't think that like someone held her down and impregnated her in that way, like with the force. But like I don't know, like how else would you, if that happened to you? Like I guess you could think that it was just like an immaculate conception from like a god figure, but to me, it always felt like this was just something that just happened to her, and like there's no other explanation. Or maybe she just didn't know
Yeah.
and didn't question it. Who knows?
I mean, I've always viewed it as like immaculate conception also, but that's like coming from being raised as a Christian. Like that's just like,
Mhm.
oh, this woman is randomly pregnant. Obviously, it's the same as Virgin Mary because there's nothing else that could possibly explain that.
But we
Right.
got baby Satan.
What?
Well,
Anakin
and
was eventually became baby Satan.
Oh,
I will just say also quite notably in the Bible, like Mary is given a choice. Mary says this is going to happen to you,
that's
and
true.
gets the chance to say that one of the most famous prayers in the whole Bible, the Magnificat, is Mary saying, "Yes, I accept that this is going to happen."
Yeah, and
Um,
we haven't. We don't know. We don't know what Shmi. All we know is that brief little bit of dialogue with Qui Gon. I can't explain what happened. Like she didn't
mhm,
seem upset about it though at any point. Like she loved Anakin very deeply.
right.
But I always interpreted it as that it was not her choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, it always seemed like, yeah, I hadn't thought about the difference between like it happening and her like specifically consenting to it, like Mary did, but just like it always seemed like she was saying it as though it were a blessing, like a good thing.
Yeah, I think
Like
that's
she
true.
always seemed very loving towards Anakin, almost like it was like a happy accident. Like, I don't know how it happened. There is no father, but I have my beautiful boy. Was like the
Mhm.
way I had always seen it. Which is a nice way to cut it, but you never know.
Yeah.
But like even if that's how she felt, and we find out that like he was a product of the dark side. I mean, like if that became canon, it would actually raise a lot of new questions and like deepen like the debate on like if Anakin was factually 100% canonically created by dark side users, and the Jedi didn't realize any of this or didn't question it. Makes them seem even freaking stupider than they already do.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, there's an awful lot of things that the Jedi just don't question. Oh, hey, look, we have a clone army. Where did that come from? Okay, I guess we'll use it.
Literally.
Sure. All right. What else about this episode do you guys want to comment on?
It was interesting to me that the witches, unlike the Night Sisters, who are all like by and large, not all, but for the most part, are of the same species. Like they're
Mhm.
from Dathomir, they're Dathomiri witches, and obviously, like some people are brought into the sisterhood as we see in other pieces of Star Wars media. But like all of these women were like different looking, different species, different and like it feels like the first time we've seen like a straight up just like coven of like-minded people who might come from completely other places. And it makes me I want to know more about them. I want to know about this coven, where they came from, why they were, chased out. Um, and like, I don't know. It seems like they were like on the run, and like, why else should the Jedi have been on this otherwise, as they claim, deserted planet if if they weren't chasing these witches? It's very interesting to me.
Yeah, there's like a lot to unfold with this story because it's not all making sense right now. But I just loved everything between May and Osha. I
Yeah.
think I'm pretty sure those are real twins because they look slightly different. Do you guys know
Yeah.
they
I,
are?
I
Okay,
checked. Yeah.
I think they
I
are.
forget their last name, but their names are Laura and Leia.
of
Wait,
course.
actually, Leia?
Well, spelled Leah.
Okay, but it's pronounced Leia, not Leah. That's
I believe
amazing.
that's the case, but it might be wrong.
That'd be.
Interesting.
I hope you're right. That's amazing.
But yeah, so I feel like the two of them, I mean, obviously they're twins in real life. They had really good chemistry and just a really believable type of back and forth between the two of them. And it's kind of it's sad, because May loves her sister so much she wants them to be together all the time. And it's like kind of the classic thing of like a younger sibling thinking their older sibling is so cool, like I just want to spend all our time together. And the other sibling's like, "No, fuck you. Like I need my space. I need to be a person." Except in this case they're twins. And it is hard to watch, like May doesn't understand. She doesn't understand the want to be separate, and all Osha is trying to do is form her own opinions and be like a person with
Yeah.
agency, which is a right that she has. But just that divergence from like what May sees as ideal is so hurtful to her, even though neither of them are necessarily wrong.
Yeah. I did just double check, by the way. The actresses are named Lauren, not Laura. Lauren and Leia Brady.
That's incredible.
Hmm.
That's kind of cool.
That's incredible.
Um,
Um,
yeah, no, I'm with you there. And looking at the pictures, the actors also reminds me of what they did with the hair. And this is another reason why I feel like this show has earned my trust, and that's why I'm not bothered that so many things in this episode felt off. Because, like, one of the things I remember thinking during the first episode is, it's kind of weird that these two haven't seen each other in a decade and a half, but they still have the exact same haircut. Not even haircut, like hairstyle in a very specific way.
Yeah.
Knowing that it's the hairstyle that they had when they were little girls together, and thus also the haircut they had when they were both cut off from their community and from each other. It makes more sense to me of like, okay, maybe they both kept it this way as a way of like holding on to that community and that
Mhm.
tradition and all of that. So to me, that's a
And it
real
is
example of like, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's the same protective style that Mother Anna why can I not say her name?
Is it
Anasea.
I'm gonna say yeah.
Yeah,
Anasea. It's the same protective hairstyle she has. So it's like a piece of their mother as well as
yeah,
their home and their life.
very true, very true. Yeah, so the idea that a question was set up in the first episode that people might go, oh, but that doesn't make any sense. No, actually, it does. They just haven't explained it yet. So
Hmm.
Mhm.
that's the attitude I'm going to hold.
And I'm glad that we're seeing like, and Matthew and I talked about briefly last episode that like we wanted to see more of I'm blanking on her name, Jedi Master the one
Indara.
Mandara, thank you, because she was so hyped up as being this major part of the series and she was killed so quickly. I'm happy that like we're seeing her in flashbacks, and if we're excuse me, and if we're correct that this is one of multiple flashbacks to come, we should see more of her,
Yeah.
which makes me happy because I really love her as an actress. I loved her in the Matrix movies, and I'm happy to see more of her. Um, it was a little off putting for me to see Game of Thrones boy King what's it Torvin
Oh, Tommen.
King Tommen in Game of Thrones is Torvin, and it like really threw me off because he
Oh,
has the same
really?
accent and he looks the same. And I was like, bro, I'm not ready to bend the knee right now. This is crazy. Like, um, so, but it was cool, and like I like seeing a Wookiee Jedi like in action, even just very like
Mhm.
calm, and I don't know. I'm very hopeful because this show feels very Star Wars in that like we don't have all the answers right away. We've been thrown in the middle of the story, and we're getting piece by piece the answers,
Yeah.
which is like how other Star Wars media has done and succeeded in. So
Mhm.
I think it's also earned my trust. I agree.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm excited for the rest of the show. I'm excited to get back to um the modern day as well and like um learn more about those characters. I mean, first of all, I'm obsessed with Osha and just the parallel between her in that first episode and Ahsoka in the Fallen Jedi or arc or her Fallen Jedi arc
Mhm.
of Osha standing there at a cliff saying, "I didn't do it." And Ahsoka standing there at the end of a pipe saying, "I'm not guilty."
Mm.
Just
Right.
like with this desperation. And it just that like parallel just fucking punched me in the face. I was like, "Oh no, not again. Please believe her."
And both of those, especially being at the end of a pipe, are references to The Fugitive, which was a
Mhm.
TV show long ago. But that particular moment is from the movie with Tommy Lee Jones and Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford.
Great movie. Great
So
movie.
kind of a
Yeah.
fun little connection there.
I'm curious now as you say that. It makes me feel more and more like the Jedi set the fire, or someone in the Jedi set the fire. Because if both the sisters are like, how could you do this? Like, how could you, or like, how could you do that, or whatever? Like, it just feels like if you want to trust both of them, I mean, like, and the Jedi and Torvin is so just gutted by what he did that he goes into that 10 years in meditation. Like, that's just something really dark. And it wouldn't surprise me if that's what happened, like, and that's why May became so radicalized as well, like, or maybe just one of the Jedi did it. I don't know. Like maybe Soul
Mhm.
is genuinely unaware that this happened. Like
But
he seems
Soul
to,
carries so much guilt as well,
he does.
you
They
know?
all carry, and like he did get there very quickly to have not been already like on the grounds when this was going
Mhm.
down.
Well, and
Um,
like it seems strange to me that May would set a fire without thinking about the fact that it could engulf the whole temple. So maybe
mm,
it was that she set a smaller fire, but then they like took away her protections. Or, who knows? But I'm really glad you brought that up though, because that's another thing for me of the Jedi is, to me, if you've got a mentor and an apprentice, and something goes really wrong, one of the main jobs of the mentor is to help the apprentice absolve themselves and to really
mm,
say like, no, look, you were my apprentice, you're under my care, this is my responsibility. And so, like, yes, Indara had some guilt she was carrying clearly, but the fact that she was going around still continuing to be a functioning Jedi while her Padawan, like, was, trapped in this, like, layer of guilt so bad that he couldn't even do anything but leave his little force bubble. Like, I don't know, I hadn't realized that he was a Padawan, and so it just
Yeah.
hit me really hard. And I was like, oh, he should not have been the one to carry the most guilt here. This is not okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say, like, as much as I love the actress, Indara's kind of a dick. Like, she's not that cool so far. I really don't
Mhm.
like her that much. I mean, even the way that she, like, treated May in the opening scene, like, yeah, it was kind of cool, I don't need weapons to fight you or whatever, but she was so damn arrogant. That's why she died.
Yeah.
And seeing here on this planet, she says to the mother something about, you can't deny the right of this child to go through our trials.
Yep.
Yes, she can. What do you
Well, and
mean?
she also starts, like, it's one of those sentences that gets off, but she also says you can't deny the right of the Jedi to, and then it gets cut off.
Yeah.
So it's a very, yeah, she really believes in Jedi supremacy and that the Jedi have the right to go throughout the galaxy and ask people to give up their children, but that the people are stupid and wrong and bad if they don't.
I mean, it gives off like colonialism, manifest destiny. Like it almost gives off like, I mean, to an extreme, like white colonists in America like stealing indigenous children and like forcing them into like their assimilation programs. Like
Yeah.
it's just very like. Again, I already felt uncomfortable of the Jedi taking children. This feels dark, like the way
And
they're going about it.
one other little point of discourse I kind of noticed during that confrontation at, what was supposed to be the ascension ceremony, Mother Asenia tells the girls to hide. She goes, she's kind of like talking to them, she's taking the lead. And they say, we want to make sure you're not training children or something like that.
Mhm.
And oh yeah, that's right. Indara said something about, it's Republic law that you cannot train children in the Force unless you are the Jedi. And Mother Anasea goes, we are not a part of the Republic. And Mother, what was her name? I wrote it down. The other one who carried the children,
Mhm.
Mother Coral, said there are no children here. And so they
Right.
chose two different tactics. And the two of them clearly had sorts of, fights between them and friction between them. And so I wonder if a big part of our mystery that will be filled in is also coming from the side of the witches and not just what the Jedi did, but how the witches reacted. Maybe one of them did something, and just like this, the difference in how the two of them reacted, Mother Anasea being a very gentle parent, really loving, and Mother Coral being more like a hard ass, kind of like, you did something wrong, you need to pay the consequences, like all that,
Right.
which, objectively is kind of better parenting than just letting them have sweet treats when they want, when they just broke the rules. But
Right.
there was a very interesting dynamic set up between those two characters, and I hope that we get to see it hashed out or explained more. I hope that it means something.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, I think the clan of witches is not meant to be like totally perfect. They're still having their own problems as well.
I mean, I think both groups are meant to be morally ambiguous, and like that's part of this. Like, it's almost like a intimidation contest of like, who's going to back down first. Like exactly like the mother said, like who has the right to use the power. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe like true balance in the Force is no Force users, like no one manipulating the Force to do this or that. Like, just maybe the Jedi just been interpreting it wrong and thinking that they are the almighty and all. It actually makes me want that. I know there was an announced a James Mangold led film that's like the dawn of the Jedi, and it makes me more curious now more than ever about how the Jedi first began and why they, above all else, determined they had like the righteous right to train all children and control the Force.
Yeah, like how did they become the main sect, basically?
Right, and it's like
how did they work their way into the political standing of the galaxy?
Yes.
Also,
Right.
Yes, like they ruled the Republic. Like, did the Jedi form the Republic? Like, is this like, have we been lied to this whole time? Like, the Jedi formed the Republic in the first place, and it's just been like this weird like quasi
Like a shell company?
autocracy. Like,
and, and I think that's so important because and anyone who thinks this is like some new idea that's being introduced, remember one of Luke's lines in The Last Jedi, episode 8, is that that one of the failings of the Jedi was believing that they were the only way to the Force. I forget the exact
Mhm.
wording he uses, a monopoly on the Force or something like that. So
I mean, like for so long we only knew the dark, the Sith, and the Jedi, and now we're exploring so many other sects of understanding the Force, and it just deepens the story, enriches it so much.
yeah,
Mhm.
it really
Ugh.
does. All right. Well, it's been a great conversation. Thank you both so much. To our listeners, as always, thank you so much. We do not have member content today. Starting next week, though, I promise we will be back. But thank you all so much. Please check out all the great things in our show notes. On behalf of myself, Alex, and Erin, we have spoken.
Stay classy, Yavin 4.
Stay
How
classy, bar talk.
I wanted to mix it up. Stay classy, Bartok too. I guess there's unfortunately everyone there is dead. There's no one to stay classy.
Graveyards can be classy.
Oh my god. Sorry, Erin.
I'll kill you.
There we go. All right. Thanks, everybody. Peace out.
Oh, it was so funny.